Hey guys, it's Francine Simone, and today I am here with a writing tip. So I'm actually super excited because this writing request came in from a viewer instead of myself like usual. So thank you so much, Son. So Son actually requested a video on how I practice writing. Like how do I get better at it? And what do I do to get better at it every day? So this is actually a very tricky question for me because just as much as I write, I don't write. So what I mean to say is that a lot of my writing happens on the page and off the page. So I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to talk about my writing routine in general because, to be honest, I don't write like a lot of writers. I think there are a lot of people that do write like me, but common advice is very much different than from what I do. The common advice is generally to write every day, to pick a time of day that you write, to write a whole bunch of stuff and then just cut it down into something that's good. You know, to just keep writing until you get better at it. Share your writing with lots of people to get feedback on what to do, how to change it. There's a lot of advice that I just that just doesn't work for me, that I don't do. So I'm going to talk about what I do instead of, you know, all of this stuff that I don't, because that's weird. Why would I talk about that? So as a writer, there are 3 different things that I do. I conceptualize, I developmentally edit, and then I revise. And this is all the stuff that happens before I give the book to anyone to read or to a copy editor or anything like that. And I do all of this stuff on my own, kind of except for the developmental part that I'll get into. So number 1, I conceptualize. So for me, conceptualizing a novel happens 100% off page. I generally can't write anything during this time. Except for like journal entries, or like if I'm doing like a mock journal entry for a character or something like that, and even those have to be really short because if not, I get really distracted. I feel like I have writer's block and I can't move on. So all of my conceptualization happens off paper. This is when I listen to music, and I generally make playlists for a book, and then I make playlists for a character, and then I make playlists for events. I mean, I'm like have playlists up the ass. And I read a lot during this time. And I look for inspiration through other books, but not necessarily like inspiration of a character or inspiration on how to write things or how to get a voice or style, because my voice and my style is my own. And even if it changes from book to book to suit the characters, so I don't look at those things for the book because, you know, you can't copy someone else's style or voice. It's not very authentic. But what I do look for is emotional journeys. And I'm going to stop here and say that I'll use my book, my first book, The Keeper's Vow, as a prime example for everything that I talk about here, so you can understand what I mean with an example. So like, for instance, Anna and the French Kiss, I really enjoyed that book because the emotional journey spoke to me in a time that I needed to understand how to go about a first-time teenage emotional journey. I had memories from my own, but I couldn't really conceptualize them for paper, and my first book really lacked that emotional journey. The first draft felt very insta-lovey, not because they fell in love with each other at first sight, but just because there was no true emotional development between them from point A to point B when they do develop feelings for each other. And so, when I read Anna and the French Kiss, that book is full of very, I want to say, kind of cutesy or very quirky emotional love, and that journey and the different feelings that you get from it. And so the feelings that I got from that, I realized, wow, these are the feelings I want to feel during the journey of my main characters. I want to feel giddy. I want to feel this. I want to feel that. And so then that gives me inspiration of moments that the 2 characters would have. So, I mean, if you read my book, An Anna and the French Kiss, you're not going to see anything that's the same, obviously, because, again, it's not about taking scenes or taking ideas from a book. It's about taking emotional baggage from a book. And only books that have good quality or that are very high quality will have those emotional journeys, because emotional journeys are authentic in themselves. You can't fake an emotional journey, if that makes sense. Because emotions are all about buildups of experiences that lead you to believe or to feel a certain way about something. Now, talking about high quality books versus low quality books, I also find inspiration from low quality books. Sometimes not seeing or not getting an emotional journey, like especially if I feel like the potential of a book or the plot of a book I really want to enjoy, but it lacks authenticity in those emotional moments and those emotional journeys, because the dialogue is stilted, the actions are stilted, they're all force manipulated by the author and not done with true intent by the characters. Sometimes that can inspire me as well, because I see what's missing and I see what I cannot afford to lose out in my own manuscript. Going back to music and the example of like the relationship that I was talking about between Katie and Tristan, how it was lacking that kind of emotional journey. Around the same time as I was reading Anna and the French Kiss, I was actually watching Degrassi, and there was a song by Vivi Brown called Shark in the Water. It was really popular a while back, and it was capturing everything that I felt like Katie's and Tristan's emotional journey should be. And listening to it over and over and over again. I mean, my husband hates me because I put stuff on repeat all the time, but I rewatch and rewatch and rewatch the scene or the multiple scenes that happen and that develop their relationship over time, so I can get a true understanding of how they feel, what they're thinking, and what their most authentic reaction and responses should be in each scene, and how it plays out. So all that happens without me writing anything. I sit there and daydream. After that, I completely write the book. That may take me anywhere from a week to a month, maybe. And don't get excited, because I'm not talking about, like, you know, the finished product. I'm talking about the very rough, skeletal first draft. And I'll be honest here, it is very hard to do the first time, because your first instinct is to stop and to edit to make something sound better. But I literally write down the most frank, the most straight to the point scenes, the way I know someone is supposed to talk. I know they're supposed to say something of this effect, and I know that this person is supposed to feel this way. So it is very jagged, horrible, ugly writing. And I have to do it, and I do it the first way all the way through. And generally, the more books I write, the better I am about not making it so ugly in the beginning, but it really doesn't matter how ugly it is. What matters is that you get it all down as best as you can, and that you feel that each scene is in sync with the other as it goes through. Generally for me, if I'm writing and I'm writing and I'm writing and I'm writing scene after scene after scene, and then I stop, it usually means that something that I was writing beforehand, or the scene that I'm trying to get to, there is a disconnect, something's inauthentic and something's not working. And sometimes I'll just stop and just pick up somewhere else where I know the authenticity is real and I can just start writing. And that's generally favorite scenes that I have. Like, I'm really known for writing the romantic stuff first because that's the stuff that I love. But in general, I keep going until I stop. And even if I have my first draft and it's missing chunks throughout, it's perfectly fine because they'll get filled in later. So thing number 2 that I do is the developmental edits. And I have to be honest, as now I'm going into writing book 3, doing developmental edits and revision kind of happens at the same time for me. Also because I've streamlined a lot of what I do. It's just how I work. But to break it all down, next comes the developmental edits. And for me, this is where the knife comes out. I mean, you know, some people talk about killing your darlings. Like, for me, I don't have darlings. If either it's great or it's not. And if it's not, you gotta go. So for me, this is where big contextual stuff either gets cut, it either needs to be reworked, it needs to be analyzed completely. Every event, every character action, every reaction, every piece of dialogue, I have to look back and think, why did this person say this? Why did they do this instead of any numerous other options that they had available to them? Why do they behave this way? Why do they think this way? Where's this person coming from when they say this to this character, and how does it make them react? And, you know, how does this person judge somebody else based on that other person's previous actions and reactions? This is when I really scrutinize everybody, because at the end of the day, the human experience, what we all do is we all react and we all act. Our actions lead to reactions, and our actions and reactions have consequences, whether they're good, bad, or benign. And that's how the book has to be. So this is where I figure all of that stuff out. If at the end the main huge plot twist or the big plot ending makes no sense, or there are strings loose, or I could question just one thing and not be able to back it up with contextual evidence that happened previously, then it has to be completely reworked, and I have to continuously work it until anything I question has contextual evidence to back it up. This is where my practice and my work actually comes in, because as much as this doesn't seem like writing, and as much as this doesn't seem like what other people tell you is important, like style and voice and, you know, fancy words and flowery settings and all this other stuff, as much as this doesn't seem as important, it is the most important part, because at the end of the day, your book is a story. Everything else is the packaging. Like, if you have a gift, The gift is inside the box. The box may be pretty, and the bag that you put the box in may be pretty, and the little note card that you put on top of it may be, you know, darling and all that stuff. But if the gift itself is a lump of coal and it sucks, nobody's going to want to invite you back to their birthday party. So my next step is revision. And this is where all of the voice and all of the writing kind of comes in. This is where you take the authenticity and then you have to write it in a way that makes people love it, that makes it relatable, that makes it who your characters are, who you are, if it's, you know, a narrative voice, or, you know, where you imprint your style on it. So when I first revised my book, my most favorite book that I ever read was this one. It's called Getting the Words Right by Theodore A. Reese Cheney, Cheney. I'll link it down in the bottom. But this is my favorite book on revision, because for me, revision it has nothing to do with copy editing. Copy editing is something completely different that I would honestly advise that you learn how to do your draft on the first time yourself, but then give it to someone professional or someone who does it professionally or can do it really well to actually copy edit. But revision, it has nothing to do with copy editing as much as it has to do with words. It has to do with the way paragraphs are shaped and formed, the way you use a semicolon, or if you use an em dash instead. It has everything to do with the way you convey your story on the page. And that is the most fun part for me, the most beautiful part of writing. That to me is what makes you love writing. You know, it's where you get to bring your style. But this is also the part that has nothing to do necessarily with authenticity as far as your story is concerned, and everything to do with relatability. So I would say that the key point in revision and the way that I do it is honestly for myself. Because at the end of the day, not everyone is going to find your story relatable, and everybody's going to like your content. I mean, you know, how many people like paranormal romance? I'm not going to be able to hawk it to some old guy reading the sports paper who completely hates anything to do with vampires and romance, right? So he's never going to find my writing style maybe relatable, or he's not going to find it interesting or anything like that. So this is the part that you really get to embark yourself on, and you really get to write the story you want to write. That's a huge piece of advice that a lot of people give, is write the story you want to read, you know? And this is where you get to do it. This is where you get to use those metaphors that just make you go, pooh. There's a squirrel outside and he's looking for nuts because I always feed him and I feel so bad right now. This is where we get descriptive and we decide what our diction is going to be for this piece of work, or how we want to convey it, how we want to write it, what kind of metaphors we're going to use, how we're going to convey the feeling, how are we going to describe how she sat down. And, you know, instead of saying she felt this way, describe in a metaphor or in a scene or in a feeling without using the word she felt, you know? This is where you get to input all of those things and really bring the story alive. And it's, again, my most favorite part. So something that I do to always make sure that I'm striving to write high quality stories, or, you know, just be better at being a writer every day, is I actually write down what my standards are, what my goals are. And maybe I'll leave it in a link down below, or maybe it's on my blog somewhere and I can leave a link for that. But I just literally have a personal set of standards. Like, I won't write inauthentic stories. I mean, I know it sounds stupid and it sounds like lofty, but honestly, if we don't have high standards to strive for, then we strive for something that's less than the best. You know, I'd rather strive for the sky and land on the treetops than strive for the treetops and land on the ground. So I keep high standards. I look at the things that I see in books and I put that as one of my standards that I don't want to do, and things that I want to do and things that I want to produce. I just make that list and I remind myself of that. And also, the key and the most important thing that I do is I hold other books to those standards, because I can't in good conscience not hold a book to that standard, but hold myself to it. Because at that point, I'm making excuses, and those excuses are going to start happening to me soon. And by doing that, honestly, you start surrounding yourself with high quality books. And when you do that, you're surrounded by emotional journeys that inspire you. Because honestly, I think as writers, each and every one of us has the potential to be great. You know what I mean? There's no competition, because no one can tell our stories. You know, we are all telling individually unique stories. So we should all be there for each other to lift each other up. And we should always, always, always be redefining the ceiling. I mean, there should be no ceiling to our greatness and to what we strive to do. So, woohoo, writers! So thanks for watching. Bye, guys.